Hello and welcome to Salute Your Sports. Common and Chef here with Tom Castleman. We are ready for another huge show. It is NFL Divisional Round weekend. So many huge matchups. Bengals and Bills meeting up. It's going to be an epic game. Going to be a much different atmosphere than the last time they met. I think a much happier atmosphere. So that'll be good to see. Allen versus Burrow in a matchup of like the next guy. Like Mahomes is the guy. Allen and Burrow are the next guys. And then last week we saw a matchup of like the next guys in Lawrence and Herbert. Speaking of Trevor Lawrence and Patrick Mahomes, that's another game we'll talk about. Chiefs and Jaguars. Over in the NFC, is this the 90s, Tom? What's going on? We got Niners Cowboys. Going to be a monster game. I mean, other than Bills and Bengals might be the most, probably going to be the highest rated game this weekend as far as the ratings go. Anywhere the Cowboys play, the ratings follow. Going to be a huge game. Brock Purdy versus Dak Prescott. We have also Giants and Eagles, which, again, on the surface, Philly should cruise, but I don't know. Jalen Hurts' health. We'll talk about that game as well. We have our betting locks of the week. We're going to do better than last week. We've got sports trivia, statements of the week. This is going to be pretty much an NFL-heavy show. We'll hit on Tom Brady, where he might end up next as well. I can't wait to get started. How are you doing today, Tom?
I am doing fantastic. I'm really looking forward to talking about that 49ers-Cowboys game because you're right. Yeah. It absolutely is a throwback. But we're going to begin in the AFC with the Chiefs coming off a bye and the Jacksonville Jaguars with quite a win over the LA Chargers this past Saturday. Really wild, weird kind of game to watch. There's a lot going on there. There's a lot that you could unpack and a little bit of a recap. In short, Chargers up 27-0 on, in no small part, 4 turnovers forced against Trevor Lawrence through 4 interceptions in the first half. But Jaguars got a touchdown heading into halftime and coming out. Wow. LA just couldn't get anything going. Part of that could be because of some choices that the coach decided to make in the last game of the regular season. Of course, we're just going to have another piece of evidence on the board for the camp that says, hey, play to win in the regular season no matter what. Giants go on and win the Super Bowl that year. You should rest your guys perhaps, in the last game, make sure that you're healthy going in. Chargers didn't do that, and they ended up losing in no small part because they were missing one of their top guys. So it's one of those things where it's all anecdotal. It's all results-based thinking that you could take those two examples and reach wildly different conclusions there. But in short, the story, I think, is more about Trevor Lawrence, Doug Peterson, the head coach, being aggressive with his play calling on 4th down and coaching to really win that game and delivering a knockout blow against a Chargers team that was really tottering and kind of bolstered by those turnovers. So moving it into this week, with the Chiefs and the Jaguars, of course, a great matchup between 2 really good quarterbacks. Very good could be an understatement when you talk about Patrick Mahomes, but Trevor Lawrence certainly heralded coming out as the best quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck, and certainly toward the second half of the season started playing that way, which is typically right around when you see younger quarterbacks really put it together, is toward the tail end of that second year heading into their 3rd season is where they're making a pretty significant jump. So all of that said, Chiefs coming off a bye, Jacksonville Jaguars coming off of a massive home victory. Common, what are you highlighting in this matchup this week?
Yeah, I don't want to talk about too long about this game because I want to get straight into the biggest game of the playoffs, Bills, Bengals. But, this is a no-brainer. This is going to be an easy game for Kansas City. I don't think this will ever be close. The only thing I think that's going to happen is going to be a backdoor cover. I think the Chiefs will be up 2 touchdowns. Jaguars get a touchdown with 30 seconds left, and they say they cover the line. I mean, come on. This is ridiculous. All these folks thinking Jacksonville has any chance in this game are literally insane. I mean, it's 27-17 last time they played. It was 27-10 Chiefs after 3 quarters. Mahomes, 4 touchdown passes. They took it easy in the 4th. They got to 27-17. I know it's a different Jacksonville team, but honestly, it's Kansas City has a way better team, a way more explosive offense. Jacksonville is not going to be able to get, 5 turnovers to 0. That was a choke job of epic proportions. You talk about Mike Williams, whatever you want to say about that. The Chargers had no business losing up that much, no matter who you have. I mean, honestly, you're up 27-0 in a game. I would think the Houston Texans can beat the Chiefs up 27-0. Like that's on the players and on the coach. Chiefs cruise in this game. I don't know if there's anything else you want to say on this one. I mean, Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL. He's Superman. And I think, you look at Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, they looked human this last week. Herbert looked human. Trevor Lawrence, albeit a great second half, he looked human. I think Mahomes is going to look around and be like, look, guys, I'm the guy here. He's actually the most experienced quarterback left in the playoffs now that Brady's gone. This is Patrick Mahomes' league, and these playoffs will reflect that. I hate it when everyone wants to build up a guy to be there with Mahomes. And there are a lot of really good players, but no one is there with Mahomes. It's like Lamar Jackson one year. Then we're talking about, Aaron Rodgers is still really good. Then we're talking about, Josh Allen's the new guy. Maybe Joe Burrow. Get out of here. It's Mahomes' league. Andy Reid off a bye. Kansas City wins. No problem against the Jaguars.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a fun one. Of course, you mentioned Andy Reid off the bye. I believe 27-4 in his career.
It's not bad.
When he has an extra week off. Of course, 1-2, Super Bowl, but that's the biggest game of the year. Like that's a little bit of an outlier right there. When it comes to regular season and having a bye week heading into the playoffs, he takes a really talented team and makes that an advantage. I think this is going to be somewhat close. I think it's going to be closer than it was in the regular season, if only because you look at, Doug Peterson, he's got bona fides, won a Super Bowl with Philadelphia with Nick Foles as his quarterback after Carson Wentz had a near MVP type season prior to suffering a season-ending injury. And then you look at Trevor Lawrence, I think it's really valuable at his mindset that you throw four interceptions in the first half, and anybody could have folded in that situation. Anybody could have said this moment is too big, whatever. But Trevor Lawrence has delivered at the college level with national championships. And in the second half of that game, he was unflappable. He was poised. I think that the Jaguars are going to come in here. They're going to say, whether they look at a betting line or not, they're going to say, we are clearly underdogs heading into a hostile environment into cold weather in Kansas City. It's the whole us against the world type of mantra. I think Jacksonville will keep it relatively close, but certainly this is Kansas City's game to lose. And I think it comes down to Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes and the myriad wide receivers and weapons that they have on offense, and finding a way to make it work against a somewhat decent but not necessarily great Jacksonville defense. So I'm with you, Chiefs, on this one as well. And of course, moving into, like you said, the biggest game of the weekend, it's going to be Buffalo. It's going to be Cincinnati. This one out in not Candlestick Park. I'm blanking on the name of the Bills Stadium, but it's going to be in Buffalo. Obviously, emotions are going to be high. Both teams are, of course, coming off of a regular season game where there was that incredibly unfortunate incident with Damar Hamlin. The game never got picked up. It was just too complicated to try to work that into the schedule. So they wiped that off the slate. And these teams are kind of facing each other relatively fresh, basically going in with a mindset of, we didn't show you anything, you didn't show us anything. So it's going to be kind of this interesting matchup where they've had time to game plan before, game gets scuttled, and now are there any new wrinkles that they're going to add? Not to mention injuries along Cincinnati's offensive line. They've had 3 starters going down toward the end of the season, I think in successive weeks. So this is going to be, I think, a challenging game for Cincinnati. But Common, what's your highlights for this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, my first thought is that, last time this game happened, it was truly tragic. I know Damar Hamlin's doing really well, regularly visiting the facility, which is good. I think it's like a happier and just a much better environment around this game, which I'm pumped to see. I mean, this game could go either way. I think that's the whole, point. Like the Bengals, if they lose, it's going to be because the O-line issues, because the Bills can pressure them. But, I mean, we saw them get sacked, I think, 9 times against the Titans last year and still win. The offensive line has been an issue last year. They made the Super Bowl with that issue. It's been an issue this year. Even when they were healthy, the O-line's still been pretty bad. So I ultimately like the Bengals in this game. I really do. I love Bengals plus 5.5. Oh, man. Talk about a mortgage bet, Tom. Get your mortgage out.
Don't talk about that.
Let's go. Let's get it started. I mean, come on. Look, Josh Allen, I want to choose my words carefully here, but I'll put an emphasis on a little. But Josh Allen is a little bit overrated, Tom. I'm starting to fall out of love with Josh Allen. These turnovers that are almost costing his team games at inopportune times. I know we talk about turnovers. When does Patrick Mahomes get a turnover? When they're up 2 touchdowns and he tries to force the ball that's not going to impact the game. Josh Allen is getting costly turnovers week after week. The Bengals defense, we just saw him, get a 5-yard touchdown, 98, whatever it was, against the Ravens team. The Bengals defense is unbelievable in second halves. I don't know if you've seen, I saw some graphic and I should have saved it. I forgot what it was exactly, but the Bengals defense in second half of games is outstanding. Joe Burrow, game on the line, tends to deliver all the time. This is going to be a close game. At the end of the game, the Bengals defense is clutch. Joe Burrow is clutch. Josh Allen has not proven to me to be clutch in some of these scenarios. I think the Bengals are going to win this game. I think that Joe Burrow is the better passing quarterback in this game. I know Josh Allen could stack up the rushing yards, but against that Bengals defense, going to be a lot harder. That team plays as a defense. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago or maybe last week. They may not have an all-pro player, but they have 11 guys who are all fantastic on that side of the ball. Bengals literally have 0 weaknesses other than the O-line. I know that's a glaring weakness, but I also think Buffalo, Von Miller's not there. They're banged up. They're not in the same shape to capitalize. Honestly, if Von Miller were healthy, Tom, I would say give me the Bills because Von Miller can cook that defensive line. But the fact that he's not healthy is a major talking point in this game. The Bills just barely beat a Miami team with their third-string quarterback this last week in the playoffs. They could have easily lost that game as well. I like Cincinnati. These guys have done this in this situation. They were just in the Super Bowl last year. They went into Kansas City last year and won a playoff game. I think they've won 9 games in a row. I know the Bills are probably right behind them for biggest winning streak. Niners are in that mix too, but I really like what Cincinnati's doing right now. Give me the Bengals to go into Buffalo and break a lot of hearts. I think Buffalo is the sentimental favorite. To be honest with you, after those 4 straight Super Bowl losses, even before the Damar Hamlin situation, they might have been the sentimental favorite anyways. But now they're that's the team everyone wants to win, right? That's who everyone thinks is going to win. That's who everyone's cheering for. They were the favorite going into the season. And guess what Joe Burrow thinks? He says, I don't care. I want to win. I want to be known as one of the legends. I don't care. I don't give anything about the Bills. Cincinnati goes on the road, just like they did against Kansas City in the playoffs last year, and picks up what is surprisingly, I guess I would say mini upset, but according to the betting line, maybe slightly more than mini, because it is a 5.5 point spread. I'm shocked that that's a bigger spread than Niners-Cowboys, honestly. Although the only reason why it's not is because I guess all the Vegas things that people, all the Cowboys fans will bet, and they're kind of betting on the fact that Cowboys fans will bet and they can make money. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that the reason why the line is where it is because of, in real life, the line for the Cincinnati Bengals. We're looking at a game where, if not for a misexecution on a QB sneak that was meant to be more of a Burrow than going over the top, leaping over the top, Cincinnati doesn't get a 98-yard fumble return for a touchdown. And we could be talking about Baltimore playing in Arrowhead this week and Jacksonville heading to Buffalo. I think that the Bills are obviously, or the Bengals are obviously a really, really good team on offense, but that offensive line is going to be a problem, especially when you give a coaching staff like the Bills on defense. I know that they're missing Von Miller, but they still have good depth all up and down that offensive line. We saw what Baltimore was able to do with their pass rush, with their front. I think the Bills can pretty much match that. I know that they're not quite as ferocious in individual talent as Baltimore is, but they still have decent pass rushing, just decent defense across the board. And it's going to really limit what Cincinnati can do, what they want to do. I mean, it's going to rely on huge individual efforts from a Jamar Chase, from a T. Higgins, from Tyler Boyd at that
They'll get
receiver
it.
position. It's going to be about rallying and tackling and keeping Cincinnati limited in that effect. I think for Josh Allen and the Bills, with all those turnovers against Miami, that was the one game this weekend I had prior plans I wasn't able to watch. I wonder a little bit if perhaps Buffalo was looking a little bit past Miami, because certainly everybody who was putting money on the game was. I mean, that line got up to what, like 14 points, 2 full touchdowns, which is unheard of. Even, with a third string quarterback. Miami's no slouch of a team beyond that. I mean, we thought it was going to be a pretty easy cruising win ourselves as we were talking about that
I
matchup
think
last
Miami
week.
was going to cover, though. I did tell you Miami was going to cover. Should have put it in the line.
Just because it's a huge number, absolutely, yeah. but not cover in the sense that it's going to be a single possession, less than a touchdown difference type of game. I wonder if maybe Buffalo was looking a little bit past Miami, which is a lapse in overall focus. I wonder if they were doing that just a little bit, even though the coaches were probably drilling into them, don't look past this team. We have to focus on this week. If they were actually looking a little bit ahead to facing Cincinnati or Jacksonville, I think that the Bills, I'm going to pick them to win this one. I think it's going to be really, really close, though. I think it's going to be a tight game just because we've seen both offenses be, flash really good plays, but also flash being a little bit clunky in this postseason so far. Haven't been clean with, keeping pockets clean, with keeping turnovers. Possession of the ball. So I think it's going to be a very, very close game between these two teams. Wouldn't surprise me either way if either team won. I mean, Cincinnati, obviously in the Super Bowl last year, one drive away from winning it pretty much. Also one drive away potentially from losing against Baltimore this past week. So I'm going to go with Buffalo. It's going to be a slight edge in my book. Obviously that offensive line and what they're able to scheme up to protect Joe Burrow is going to be a huge factor in how that game's going to play out.
Yeah, and one thing to keep in mind, there's so much parity in the NFL right now. There's so many close games that, I know the end of the scoreboard, it didn't look as close, but every game was close through 3 quarters the entire week. I know San Francisco ran away with it against Seattle in the fourth quarter, but other than that fourth quarter, everything was a 1-score game entering the fourth quarter of all these playoffs. I think, was Jacksonville within 1 score? I'm not sure, but that was obviously pretty close. I can't remember the score after 3 quarters. And I believe, though, I guess the Cowboys game was the outlier now that I think of it, but most of the playoff games were close. A lot of things that's how close the NFL is. So I don't even necessarily buy that Buffalo looked past Miami, to be honest with you. I think Miami just matches up well against Buffalo. They beat them. Sure. They beat them earlier this year when they were healthy with Tua. And then in Buffalo, they played them very close in what was very, very better conditions for Buffalo. Miami, a warm weather team. So I just think Miami was ready for the game. I think they played really well. Buffalo just did not make plays. I think that Josh Allen turned the ball over. You take away the turnovers, Buffalo wins comfortably. I don't think those turnovers were a matter of I'm looking past you. They were just a matter of lapse in concentration, which is what happens with Josh Allen. And that's why I think he's going to have a turnover in this game, and that's going to be the difference. I think the Bills might lose because of Josh Allen, which is so ironic to say, but that's what I'm thinking here personally. But we'll see. We'll see on Sunday. Definitely going to be a great game.
Absolutely. Well, certainly a quarterback that didn't turn the football over himself is Brock Purdy for the San Francisco 49ers. As a game was close heading into the fourth quarter and then pulled away in the end, 18-6 in that final quarter as San Francisco won over division rivals Seattle Seahawks. Meanwhile, the Cowboys and the Buccaneers, Cowboys surviving a case of the yips from Brett Maher, missing 4 extra points, which is just absolutely, he got the one at the end. So that's a little something that he can carry with him heading into this matchup. But yeah, Tampa Bay stifled throughout most of the game, just not able to get anything going offensively. And of course, turned a a miscue from Tom Brady. First red zone interception he has thrown since 2019, turning that into a significant drive that really put Dallas in the driver's seat for their victory. So this is a classic matchup. This is the most iconic thing I can think of from this matchup is T.O. going out to middle field and dancing on the star. Well, this one's going to be in Santa Clara, and T.O. is not on the field last time I checked. So we're not going to have quite the theatrics that we've seen from this rivalry before. And certainly this rivalry goes back to before I was
Montana,
even really
Aikman.
watching football
Steve Young,
consciously.
Aikman.
So this one, I mean, certainly not the same level of quarterback play with when you think, like you said, Montana, Aikman, Young, Aikman, and now we've got Prescott and Purdy. Sounds like a little bit like a law firm. But do you have Dallas perhaps upsetting the 49ers on the road, or do you think that Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers keep this machine humming on the way to a conference championship game?
So, Tom, you know the term bandwagon, right?
Sure.
So obviously, you know that I work Sundays, working on getting Sundays off in the future at my job. So I do watch some football at some point during work, but I hadn't actually seen that much of Brock Purdy in person. Mm-hmm. Or not in person, guys, on TV, obviously. I did get a chance to watch this game because it was on Saturday. Don't work Saturdays. And I am officially all in on the Brock Purdy bandwagon. Do not insult Brock Purdy. The man is a fantastic quarterback. I don't want to give everything away because we'll have something on Statement of the Week, but Brock Purdy is incredibly good. The guy looked amazing. Actually, his numbers, I think he had something like 4 touchdowns, over 300 total yards, whatever it was. He should have had another touchdown. Brandon Ayuk dropped it in the end zone. So, by the way, talk about quarterback play. I know consistency. I'm pulling it up here on my phone. I'll give you the numbers because Dak Prescott had 5 touchdowns and well over 300 total yards. So these guys are no slouch. I think obviously Dak is inconsistent, but 332 pass yards, 3 touchdowns for Purdy, and a rushing touchdown. So he should have had another one if Brandon Ayuk didn't drop it in the end zone. I think this is going to be San Francisco winning. I think it's going to be close, but I don't feel like I'm pretty confident in San Fran winning. Look, Dallas has a really good defense. San Francisco's defense is even better. Number 1 in the NFL in least points per game allowed. Number 1 in the NFL in least yards allowed. Micah Parsons, great with 13.5 sacks. Nick Bosa, 18.5. Even better, Nick Bosa is the second best defensive player in the NFL behind TJ Watt. And because Watt was hurt this year, Bosa is taking home that defensive player of the year. Interesting point here, Tom. This season, regular season, Dallas forced the most turnovers on defense. San Francisco tied for the second most. So these defenses are both, turnover-friendly defenses. But I think that San Francisco has more talent on defense. They allowed less points, less yards. And I actually think San Francisco has more talent on offense. Look, CeeDee Lamb is fantastic, but San Fran's got Debo, Samuel, and Brandon Ayuk. Dalton Schultz is great. George Kittle's even better. Tony Pollard and Zeke are really good. Christian McCaffrey, Elijah Mitchell are even better. We saw all those missed PATs. Robbie Gould, better at kicker. And we have McCarthy and Shanahan at coaches. You know where I'm going with that one, Shanahan. So I think that Dallas right now played amazing last week. I think Dallas is going to have a lot of confidence. I think this whole Dallas chokes in the playoff thing, I don't think we're going to see it this next week. I think we're going to see the A+ game from Dallas. We'll see the A+ game for San Francisco. This time around, though, San Francisco legitimately has more talent. I've said this on the show. Even though I'm bought in on Brock Purdy, I do think Patrick Mahomes is generational. So I know, I've got the Chiefs and Niners in the Super Bowl. I'll have the Chiefs winning, of course. But I said this last week. San Francisco might have the best roster up and down. They have no weaknesses. They have a great roster. They have a great coaching staff. San Francisco should win. I keep going back and forth on this line because I think Dallas keeps it respectable. But the fact that it's like 3.5 or 4 points, I think San Francisco can probably cover too.
Yeah, I think for this one, I'm going to go with San Francisco for all the reasons that you mentioned. Better coach, better overall defense, better overall offense. Although I think that I give a slight edge, more than a slight edge, I give a pretty significant edge talent-wise to Dallas with Dak over Brock Purdy. I mean, of course, Dak has made, I think, except for last week, I think he threw interceptions in like 5 straight regular season games. There was a pretty consistent stretch of the season where he was turning the ball over every single game. Look, I mean, Brock Purdy, you can look at the numbers and you can say, yeah, threw for 300 something yards. He completed 18 passes. You look at when you're talking about how deep and how talented and how well coached is San Francisco is across the board. Brock Purdy is 8th in the NFL with passing yards after the catch, which means his yards are coming after he's given the ball to a playmaker and they make the play. The number one quarterback,
Deebo Samuel, it helps.
The number one quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo. So that tells me that you can take a decent to mediocre quarterback and have them flourish in this system. I don't necessarily think that means that Brock Purdy is an overly talented player. I think that he is put in a position to succeed and that he is doing pretty well with that position to succeed. I'm not going to go so far as to say that he is the answer, that he is the solution for San Francisco at quarterback, because we've seen other guys do it in this system with Garoppolo in particular. We saw Kyle Shanahan turn Matt Ryan into an MVP candidate for one season. After that, Matt Ryan not quite as good. Trey Lance, certainly super small sample size, so jury's out on him and his overall impact. But it's no secret that, when you complete 18 passes for 332 yards and you're looking at how most of those passes are completed, these are shallow crossers that Deebo Samuel, that Christian McCaffrey are able to take the distance, which is more about those players' individual efforts than necessarily the quarterback, quote, making a big play. Brock Purdy, I would qualify as a win with quarterback. He's not a win because of quarterback. Dak is a win because of quarterback.
I'll counter that and say, though, there were so many plays in that game. If you watch the game, he actually escaped pressure and he should have been sacked or thrown the ball away, and he completed passes. I was actually so impressed at his improvisation. He looked like a mini Patrick Mahomes at times out there on the field.
The last guy who said that about's getting run out on a rail in New York.
I think you're selling him short, man. I think Brock Purdy's making a lot of plays. And actually, I almost can argue with you. The fact that you said Jimmy G's first and Brock Purdy's 8th almost leads me to believe, look. Now he's better than Jimmy G. Brock Purdy's better than Jimmy G. The guy is out there balling. Look, I know Deebo Samuel's really good. I know Brandon Ayuk is really good. Yes. But we're not talking about Randy Moss and Chris Carter here. I mean, these are very good receivers, but they're not like out of this world players. It's just like a very good system, but Brock Purdy is doing things with that San Francisco offense that, honestly, he looks better than Jimmy G. He looks better than Alex Smith did back in the day, better than Colin Kaepernick. He looks better than Trey Lance has. He looks better than these guys, and the stats prove it. They're not way better, but you look at passer rating this season, got a better passer rating than Jimmy G. He has been better player than Jimmy G ever was in San Francisco. And now that they're letting him make a few more passes, we're seeing it. I mean, Dak may have, it's hard to say. He may have more talent, but Dak has been very up and down this year. But I don't necessarily buy that the Cowboys have the edge at the quarterback position.
Would you rather have Brock Purdy in San Francisco or Dak Prescott?
I don't know. I need more sample size. That's the whole point. That's how good Brock Purdy is right now. I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced I would rather have Dak Prescott.
I think Brock you could put at least 20 quarterbacks in San Francisco and they'd be better than Brock Purdy.
I don't think so. I don't, because we've seen Jimmy G. We saw how well we did in New England when Brady was out. Jimmy G for me is like a baseline average quarterback in the NFL, about 15 or 16. And I think Brock Purdy's better than him. So I would not agree with that statement. I think you can probably comfortably put maybe 10, but I wouldn't go as far as 15. Brock Purdy, to me, is a better than average starting quarterback. And for that reason, I think he is the answer in San Francisco. I think he's better than Trey Lance. He's better than Jimmy G. I actually would commit to Brock Purdy personally. The man is doing stuff that I haven't seen a San Francisco quarterback do since Steve Young. I mean, he's the best guy they've had since Steve Young at that position. I know it's very small sample size.
Colin Kaepernick was better. Colin Kaepernick got them to the Super Bowl.
I think Colin Kaepernick was a better runner, but once the league figured him out, he wasn't as good. I think it's like
Okay.
the running quarterbacks, Tom. It
He's
takes
a
a
good
little bit
passer
of time.
too.
He was a good passer.
Yeah, like
But
I
Brock
think he was a
Purdy's a
better
good passer too. Brock Purdy's a good passer.
Colin Kaepernick's better than Brock Purdy.
I don't think so. I'm taking Brock Purdy. So, I don't know.
It sounds like we both got San Francisco in that one.
Yeah.
The large existential
one
questions.
One of us is much higher on Brock Purdy than the other. He passed the eye test for me, Tom. He passed the eye test for me this last weekend. I was very impressed because people want to label him as a game manager, but his escapability is among the best I've seen in the league. He's very crafty. He may not be
fine.
He
the
may
greatest
not
quarterback of all time is a game manager.
He might not be as like fast or as athletic as someone. Kind of reminds me of a young Ben Roethlisberger. I'm not saying he's going to be quite as good as Ben Roethlisberger, but young Ben Roethlisberger was very good at escaping pressure. He wasn't necessarily like the fastest guy out there, but he was like crafty on the move. And Brock Purdy's crafty on the move. That's why it's like I can't label him as a game manager. I mean, I think he might be a game manager only within that system because they don't need him to go out there and make plays. But I think if they need him to make a play in the playoffs, I think he'll make it. And we'll see that this weekend against Dallas.
Well, certainly Dallas is going to have their hands full. You've got Dexter Lawrence, Micah Parsons as pass rushing. It's going to be interesting to see what San Francisco does to counter. And in line with that whole yards after the catch conversation about the quarterbacks and the yardage there, it's going to be incumbent upon Dallas's back four to rally to the ball, to make those plays, to prevent a small play, a small pass turning into a big play, or I should say a short pass turning into a big play, because that's someplace where San Francisco not only excels, but game plans to excel. So that's going to be really key for their defense. I think both teams are going to be stepping up in terms of who they're going up against defensively. I think certainly Dallas better than Seattle. And I just think San Francisco is certainly better than Tampa Bay. So it's going to be interesting to see these two teams putting up, 31 and 41 points respectively in the wild card round. I think we're going to see obviously a bit lower of a number than that as we are heading into this game. And then, of course, we have the Eagles, the last team that was on bye, taking on the New York Giants, who upset the Minnesota Vikings, a game that I'm not going to take credit for it because I didn't pick it. I was waffling a little bit back and forth looking for that upset. I decided, you know what, Tampa Bay over Dallas is the upset to pick. But then I saw an interesting stat that, of course, I see after the game comes out. The Minnesota Vikings at 13-4 were last in the league this year in combined points per game and yards given up. Or I think it was like total points and yards given up. All the other teams going back like 7, 8, 9 years all had losing records. I think the best record was 5-11, which says something about the quality of Minnesota's defense, and maybe says something that had I seen that sort of statistic earlier, I might have felt good enough about picking the Giants to win. But certainly, regardless of that, Brian Daboll and the Giants came out with a really good game plan. Daniel Jones came out and played really, really well at the quarterback position. Eagles took both of these regular season games. I know that there's the whole notion that it is difficult to win 3 times against a team in a single season.
You just saw the Bills do it. The Bills didn't. The Bills were 1-1 against the Dolphins.
Correct. Yeah. So this is 49ers kind of an interesting one because the Eagles won in in New York like 48-22. And then that last game of the season, they won 22-16 when the Giants didn't play Daniel Jones, didn't really go out with a full team effort on that one. So it's kind of hard to say, like, okay, are we going to have a big blowout like we did in the Meadowlands? Mm-hmm. Or is this going to be a game that the Giants keep close, perhaps even can pull up a very, I think, unlikely upset?
Yeah. By the way, Tom, real quick, I know I was going to give us our records. Even though you are definitely well ahead on betting locks of the week, I'll give you that for sure, although that's not saying much. But I'll say this, 4-2 last week for me on picking games straight up. You were 3-3. Mm-hmm. I struggled with the Chargers-Jaguars game. I went back and forth. I think I ultimately picked the Chargers. But the 2 games I missed was the Vikings and the Chargers games. I did have the Cowboys, although again, I'll be honest, I went back and forth on that one too.
Yeah.
I just said Dallas because they had more talent. But yeah, this is a very interesting game here. That last game was 22-16, although again, it was like kind of like a backdoor cover for the Giants, but their backup quarterback was playing. So it's kind of tricky. And the simple answer is it really comes down to Jalen Hurts' health. Not only his health, but also how rusty is he? Because he's only played 1 week of football over the last month or so. And, they had a bye week. So he hasn't played much football. Even if he's healthy, is there rust? Because it's different when you go up against, a speedy NFL defense, the timing, etc. So it's going to go down on Jalen Hurts' health. I mean, the big difference in this matchup is the wide receiving core, to be honest. That's the massive difference I see. Both teams can run the ball well. I know Giants a little bit better, but Miles Sanders, 5th in the league in rushing yards, a healthy Jalen Hurts. Even though, Jones is good at running too, but a healthy Jalen Hurts gives the Eagles maybe an overall advantage running the ball. Defensively, Philly's a little bit better, and particularly because of their pass rush, but the Giants' defense is good as well. The big difference is the receiving play. I mean, you look at A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith will be the number one guy on the Giants, no question. He's number 2 on his own team because A.J. Brown is that good. Top 5 in the league in receiving yards. If Jalen Hurts is healthy, we trust him more than Daniel Jones, even though Daniel Jones last week, Tom, the first player in playoff history with 300 passing yards, 70 rushing yards, and 2 touchdown passes in the same game. He was also great like their last game he played in the regular season. He was coming off probably the 2 best games of his career, Daniel Jones. So he's got tons of confidence in this game. So look, if Jalen Hurts is healthy, Philly probably wins and probably covers 7.5. With that said, I think that he's not going to be fully healthy. And even if he is, there's going to be a little bit of rust there. So I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a 1-score game. I think Philadelphia's got the home field. They've got the more talented team, the more explosive offense. So I'm going to pick Philly to win. But the Giants plus 7.5 might be a tease. 2 betting locks of the week. Seems like a good play. And I don't even know if it's going to be a backdoor cover this time. I actually think that it might be something where the Giants, maybe they backdoor cover, or maybe it's like a 3 or 4, 7-point game. Giants get the ball with like a minute to go and they come up short on the last drive, something like that. I think it's going to be a close game, but I do think Philadelphia ultimately pulls this one out. I would not be shocked if New York wins, though. They've been shocking the world the whole season. So one more thing to think about. Everyone makes fun of the NFC East. The NFC East has been a laughingstock in recent years. 3 of the final 4 teams in the NFC are from the NFC East. Think about that, Tom. So maybe it talks about how good the division was this year. So very interesting. 3 out of 4 teams in the NFC left are NFC East teams.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Eagles on this one as well. I mean, Brian Daboll and the Giants have done a fantastic job in this season, certainly in close 1-score games. I don't necessarily know if this is going to be a 1-score game or not. I know that the Eagles, with a full week off, that gives Jalen Hurts, he was okay enough to play in that last game of the regular season
Didn't play great, though. Did not play great.
Yeah, but like with the shoulder injury, basically he was going out there just to kind of help ensure, because Gardner Minshew had 2 opportunities to help the Eagles seal up that first-round bye week, and they said, you know what, Jalen Hurts at whatever percentage healthy that he currently is enough for us to have to go out and get this must win if we want to make sure that we have the number 1 overall seed, have a guaranteed week off to give Jalen a little bit of extra time to get healthier. As I mentioned last week, this point of the season, nobody in the NFL is 100% fully healthy and ready to go. I think that this is going to be a challenging game for the Giants, because I think in large part their success against Minnesota came from the fact that Minnesota plays a rather passive defense, a lot of off coverage with their cornerbacks, and not really any sort of great individual talent. I mentioned that stat, prior to the segment about how the Minnesota defense ranks in the league. And so you can take a team like the Giants, who we said, yeah, they've got a great running back in Saquon Barkley, Receiving talent feels kind of lacking. Daniel
There's
Jones
none. No
is a bit of
receiving
a
talent.
cipher as far as a quarterback, where when he is really good, he looks really, really good. But then he also has made some questionable plays and had some questionable games. I think that the Eagles are going to be smooth, steady across the board. I think their defense is absolutely rock solid. I don't know that we get a 48-22 outcome, but I also think we're going to have something a little bit more exciting than a 22-16 outcome in this game. I think that the Eagles are pretty primed to go on a bit of a run here against a Giants team that feels like they've overachieved a little bit this season. So I don't know, line wise where you want to end up with this one, but I think that the Eagles are going to win fairly comfortably this week against New York. And of course, it's the playoffs. It's the NFC East. There's always going to be a tough matchup. I mean, look at what happened with Cincinnati and Baltimore, Buffalo, and Miami when they had those divisional
Division games are
matchups. So
tough.
those were tough games. But I think that the talent disparity between Philadelphia and New York is great enough that I think the Eagles can win this one pretty handily.
Okay.
So that concludes the divisional round matchups that we have looking ahead. Another look ahead. I mean, it seems like we've had this conversation every year for I don't know how many years.
I know.
But Tom
And
Brady,
I'm not even a Tom Brady fan. I try not to have
no,
him too much in the show, but you look at ESPN and it's all they're talking
sure.
about. And I was like, you know what? We might as well put this in at the end of the show. And, it's worth a mention. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, Tom Brady and the Buccaneers knocked out of the playoffs. I mean, this has been a speculation for a little while now, multiple seasons, that he is done with Tampa Bay. I mean, obviously, he retired last year before coming back. In bigger league news, the Miami Dolphins were fined and had to forfeit their first round pick in this upcoming draft. So there's only going to be 31 first round selections this year, because the NFL concluded that there was tampering, that there was improper conduct and contact between the Miami Dolphins and Tom Brady, and then also Sean Payton out of New Orleans. And basically the whole notion was, instead of going with Tua, what the Dolphins wanted was Tom Brady and Sean Payton to unite in South Beach to lead the Dolphins. So this has been going on for a year plus at this point. Bruce Arians has retired and moved up to the front office. Todd Bowles has taken over. Byron Leftwich, by the way, I believe reports are saying that he is going to be out as offensive coordinator this year. Last I checked, I haven't seen that that's officially official, but that's certainly something that could be coming down the pipe here. So there's a lot of speculation of what Tom Brady could do. He could hang it up. He could go to name any team that could possibly be looking for a quarterback this offseason. What do you think, I guess, is best for Tom Brady? I mean, I know we don't really have any sort of personal insights or super deep connections to the league or anything like that, but
you mean you don't know Tom Brady's trainer? You don't have the number?
Yeah, no,
I've got him on speed dial. No,
I didn't make it to the vegan conference because I just cannot live that lifestyle. So down with the Buccaneers, where do you think he's going to end up? And, maybe where do you want, or where do you think is best for him to end up, regardless of where you think is the most feasible?
Yeah, I mean, so obviously, if you looked at the press conference at all, he's leaving Tampa. That he's not staying in Tampa. I think that much is known. I also think I think it's pretty safe to say that he's not retiring. Tom Brady's a competitor. He does not want to go out that way. Obviously, had a divorce after all that. There's no way he's done. He's coming back 100%. So there's two things I can tell you with. I guess I don't have the sources, at least on this move, but I can say with, let's say, you never say never, but 95% certainty that he'll not be back in Tampa and that he won't retire. It's going to be another team that'll be playing for next year. There are two teams that I think Tom Brady would like to go to, and they're both in very weird spots. So I'm not sure if either is going to happen. But I think first and foremost, if he can make it happen, Tom Brady should go to the 49ers. I mean, we talk about the 49ers, the best defense, weapons on offense. They're at such a weird spot, though, because you have Brock Purdy's playing so well. You have Trey Lance. who you had in the early pick. You've got Jimmy Garoppolo, who again has played well. Looks like Jimmy G is probably out, but they essentially have three guys there, and Tom Brady maybe becomes the fourth. They're in such a weird spot, and there are no easy answers for San Francisco. But if Tom Brady can convince him and tell him, look, I'm still better than Brock Purdy. I'm still better than Jimmy G. I'm still better than Trey Lance. I want to come down for 1 to 2 years. You can still go to Purdy or Lance down the road if you want to. That's who I would be talking to if I'm Tom Brady, because, Tom Brady is all about the legacy. He may not go out there and say it publicly, but this man is obsessed with his legacy. He wouldn't be playing. He wouldn't be divorced right now. He could be at home with his now ex-wife, his kids. He's playing this game. Yes, I know he loves football, but he's playing this for the legacy. He wants to have all the numbers, all the stats. If I'm Tom Brady, I look around, where can I win a Super Bowl? The most obvious destination is San Francisco. That's where I actually thought he was going to go in this offseason, find a way to work around San Francisco. His number 2 option to win now would be Miami. You just talked about it. I mean, they tampered with him. There's a connection there. They also have probably the best shiny toys in the NFL. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. That is the best 1-2 duo in the league. It's a very good football team. I know essentially with the healthy Tua, they were like 7-3. I mean, Miami's a borderline top 5 NFL team with a good quarterback. That's how good they are. Obviously, playing with your third string quarterback is tough, but Miami is the other destination. Those are the two that he can go to if he wants to win. Now, the interesting one, you mentioned Sean Payton. I know Devontae Adams is there. There's a lot of talk about Brady to the Raiders, which could happen. And I think if he can't go to San Francisco or Miami, the Raiders is a good destination because you have Devontae Adams. With that said, though, the Raiders are not ready to win a Super Bowl. Tom Brady is not going to propel the Raiders to a Super Bowl. The defense is too inconsistent. They don't have a coach. I mean, I know they have a coach, but I know he's got a past relationship with Brady that might help them. I know there's rumors that Sean Payton might go there. So that could happen, Brady and Payton. I just think I don't know where he's going to end up. The Raiders seems the most plausible, but I think he wants to go to San Francisco or Miami if he wants to win another ring.
Yeah, I think that, San Francisco long has been a place that
he grew up there, by the way.
Yeah, that's been tied to Tom Brady.
Yeah.
So, I think like San Francisco is always going to pop up, just like they do with, say, Aaron Rodgers, as far as, okay, where are these quarterbacks going to go who have some tie geographically and perhaps, childhood fandom to those teams. I think that Miami makes a lot of sense. Certainly more sense than San Francisco logistically, just because they have a lot invested in Trey Lance, a first-round draft pick.
Miami's got Tua, though. That's the question mark.
Well, but
what's going to happen with Tua? Is he going to play next year? Now, if they know Tua may not play next year, or they know his health is really bad, or he's thinking about retiring, 100% make the move for Brady. But that's the interesting thing, because with the 49ers, I think it's easier to move away from Trey Lance than Tua, because we haven't seen Trey Lance do it in the NFL. We've seen Tua be a top 5 quarterback this season when healthy. I think it's very hard to tell Tua, look, we're going to go to Brady even for 1 year. How do you expect them to go back to Tua? I mean,
well, they might not. That's the thing.
They might not. So do you dump Tua for Brady? Are you convinced Brady's going to win them the Super Bowl? Because Tua, if they could get him healthy, this is the guy who could be your quarterback for 10 years down the road and a legitimate NFL starting quarterback. It's very tricky.
It's a matter of if they trust Tua, but also Tua is in the last guaranteed year of his contract. It's going to be up to Miami if they want to pick up that 5th-year option. So that's something where when I say it's easier to transition, it's because technically speaking, they don't have anything committed to Tua Tagovailoa heading into this offseason. So if they want to make that move, now would certainly be the time to do it, especially if they don't trust his medicals with the concussion history, if they don't trust his other medicals, because he had a couple injury issues in college, including a hip issue leading into the draft. So they could just decide, eggs in one basket. Some of these eggs might be a little bit cracked, a little bit more fragile, so to speak. it's easier for them to move on. Whereas with Trey Lance, he's under contract for 2 more seasons with a lot of guaranteed money because he was the 3rd overall pick. So that's why I'm saying logistically, it's easier to go to Miami than it is to San Francisco. I think in terms of just like the wide openness, obviously, the Raiders are going to be a popular name, like you mentioned. I think possibly something like New Orleans. I know they're in cap hell with everything pushed back, but you put Tom Brady in a dome where he doesn't have to really deal with the conditions for 8 or 9 games in a season. I think that could be something. And they already have Sean Payton under contract. I know that they've said publicly Dennis Allen will be back as head coach, but if they wanted to pull a switcheroo, they could do that because they control Sean Payton's coaching rights until I think it's after the 2024 season. So I think New Orleans could be. Yeah, go ahead.
No. I don't want to cut you off, but New Orleans is kind of like the Buccaneers from a couple years ago because their offense is sneaky good. You got Kamara, who's really good running back. Chris Olave, a fantastic rookie. Jarvis Landry, who is a really good receiver, just did not seem to fit this first season, but led the league in catches one season.
Yep.
This is a big if. But if Michael Thomas can somehow get healthy, this is the guy who led the league in receiving touchdowns, receiving yards. Tom Brady might be looking around. Look, Chris Olave, Michael Thomas, Jarvis Landry, Alvin Kamara. I can work with this. A sneaky, dangerous, kind of like the Buccaneers, that team that, maybe a few years back, they didn't look like maybe a great team, but they were just around the corner. They were a quarterback, maybe one more piece away, got Gronk, Fournette, already with Evans and Godwin. That's just like a sneaky destination, the Saints are, because obviously Michael Thomas's health is a big part of it, and that's unknown. Just like Tua's health, a big part of it, unknown. You got to gamble on health. But the Saints have sneaky good pieces if Brady were to go there.
And then 2 more spots that I think are sneaky, and it kind of depends both on ownership and or no, not the ownership and or GM risk tolerance. Carolina, is a team that could be a pretty decent option for Tom Brady because looking at the rest of the roster, it seems pretty decent, pretty strong. I mean, look at what Steve Wilkes was able to do with a hodgepodge of PJ Walker, Sam Darnold, and Baker Mayfield this season.
DJ Moore is good.
And you got plenty of options there. And then I don't know if Indianapolis is going to continue with this bit.
Oh, my gosh.
But they certainly could be an option where they say, hey, let's take another one of ye old quarterback and try to put them into the system. I think Indianapolis is more geared for looking toward a long-term solution. They have the 4th pick in the draft, so I think they're going to try to make either a pick at 4 or maybe make a move up where they can get a Bryce Young, a CJ Stroud, a Will Levis, if they believe in the pre-draft process that one of those guys is the guy. But I mean, as far as like, if you're writing the Indianapolis Colts as a little bit of a sitcom, I mean, consider that they don't even really have a head coach. I mean, they had Jeff Saturday come in with no coaching experience.
How does Brady's career end? He goes to the Colts. He's not going there. He's seen what happened to Phillip Rivers. That's a curse. No way Brady's going to the Colts. Also, T.Y. Hilton, obviously no longer on the Colts, way past his prime. Who do the Colts have as far as offensive options? They don't have very many good receivers.
I mean, you've got Jonathan Taylor to anchor the run game, but then you've got Michael Pittman at receiver.
No.
Harris
Michael Pittman, no. He's not going there. He's got no one to throw the ball to. I mean, come on.
Got Alex Pierce, the rookie out of Cincinnati?
No.
You can draft a receiver in the first round.
No receiving core in Indianapolis. Tom Brady is not going there. Not a chance.
Well, we'll see where Touchdown Tom ends up. Is certainly an up and down year for him this season. Like I said, it was when we were recapping Dallas and Tampa. Didn't throw a red zone interception for 2-something years. 2019 was the last time he did it. And even this time it was a little bit of, was he trying to throw it away and just didn't get enough oomph on it or something like that. So at the very, very least, he is still good at managing the game, at playing within himself. And let's see what happens if he gets in a situation where he doesn't have to throw the ball 50 times every single game because his offense can't get a run game going. So that's certainly going to be a big intrigue for the league this year. Perhaps the biggest story outside of what do the Chicago Bears do, given that they have more money than almost every single team combined, it seems like, the first overall pick in the draft. There's a lot of intrigue of what's going to be going on. Tom Brady saga is going to continue someplace, to be certain. We just don't know exactly where yet. Another saga that will continue is a little segment that we like to call betting locks of the week. It could have been better. It could have been worse, but
could
really
have been a little bit worse.
It
Well,
could
not for me.
It was a half point away from being as bad as a locks of the week can be. So
As
I guess,
we've ever
Colin, if
had.
you want to
Yeah.
just kind of breeze through the rundown
I don't
real
think we've
quick,
ever
and
had
we'll
an
give everybody
over.
their fades.
I don't think we've ever had an O for a week on the show, have we? I don't think
so,
we've
no.
ever had that
I think
happen.
the worst we've done is 1-5, and Brett Maher, we can tip a cap to him for keeping that Cowboys Bucks game on the under.
Well, this was the worst week, 1-5, as you mentioned, Tom. It's just like go with the gut, man. Like I could have been like 2-1 this week. There was so many games I was torn between picking. Like I had written down Seahawks +10 at the Niners, or I had written down Dolphins +13.5 against the Bills. I was like, these are divisional games. I mean, obviously I had the Niners and Bills winning, but I had originally penciled in Dolphins cover, and I'm like, you know what? It's a third string quarterback. Give me Seahawks to cover instead. And they were covering most of the way. They're up at halftime. Fourth quarter got ugly, so I missed Seahawks +10. The one game that I thought I was going to be, and the other thing, I almost thought picking Cowboys -2.5 because I thought Dallas would win, and I could have been 2-1. I had 5 picks written down. I could have been 2-1, 3-0 week, but did not happen. I went with Bengals -8 over the Ravens. That was the one that I felt the best about. They won by 7, of course. Although that was definitely a true cover because the Ravens deserved to cover. You might argue that they deserve to win. So I have no gripes on that one. Giants, Vikings under 48.5. I was thinking these two quarterbacks, I mean, they might have a bad game, but then I didn't think, through it enough because Minnesota's defense is atrocious. So that overhit 31-24. So could have been like a 2-1 week if I went with other picks. But 0-3, unfortunately. You were 1-2. You had Chargers -1.5 at the Jaguars at halftime. You were probably sitting pretty thinking you've got your money there. Not as bad, though, as the better. Did you see the better that placed $1.4 million?
My guy.
To win $11,000
that's my
at
guy.
the live line for the Chargers. What in the world are you doing? You have $1 million. Why do you need $11,000?
How do you think he got to the million? Stack those bets.
He did not get there betting. I don't want to know what this guy does for a living. That is the stupidest bet I've ever heard in my life. $1.4 million to win $11,000, whatever, 11,000 and change. I don't feel bad for this guy because normally bad beats. I've been there. I feel horrible for him. I do not feel bad for him one bit. It makes literally no financial sense, Tom. If you've got $1 million to bet, why do you need 11,000? What does it do for you? Like,
gives you 11,000 more.
No.
How many opportunities do you have to make $11,000 in an hour and a half?
I don't get it. I just do not get it. It just made no sense. He put a curse on the Chargers. They were already cursed before that. Yeah. This guy solidified it. So yeah, Chargers -1.5. You missed the Jaguars win 31-30. You were covering pretty much the whole way up until the clock hit 0-0-0. I think technically when it was 0 at the game just started. So you got barbecued there. Although I think your record is a fair record because you got positively helped out by the 4 missed extra PATs. 31-14. Cowboys over the Bucks, 45 points. You had under 45.5, got it by a half point. And then you also missed the Bengals. You had a -8 over the Ravens. Bengals winning 24-17 by 7. What you got this week, Tom?
So for this week, we already basically it's an all divisional slate because that's where my attention is focused. I mentioned we talked about a close game with Cincinnati and with Buffalo. I know this number has ranged quite a bit. I found it at 5 on Bovada. It's the sort of thing where plus or minus a point, I'm willing to take it either which way. Give me the Bengals to cover on the road. I think this is going to be a close game. Let me pull up a little bit of a note sheet that I found here on ESPN. I believe Joe Burrow 3-0 all time as a playoff underdog against the spread.
Yeah.
And Cincinnati has covered 8 straight games as an underdog, including the playoffs, which is the longest streak in the NFL. So I think this is going to be a close one between Cincinnati and Buffalo. I think it's also going to be, relatively speaking, a close one between Jacksonville and Kansas City. You're saying backdoor cover on this one. I'm saying maybe a little bit less than that. Give me Jacksonville plus 8.5. I think they're on a pretty decent roll. And Kansas City's defense, while it has some pretty good individual players, I don't think collectively as a unit that it's enough to necessarily stop the Jaguars from scoring points and being able to drive down the field. This is the sort of thing where the better quarterback and the better collection of offensive talent is going to win the game. But I think that Jacksonville is going to make a game out of it. And then I'm going to go to the Giants and the Eagles. I'm going to go under the total of 48.5. I know that the Giants put up a bunch of points last week against the Vikings, but that is an absolutely atrocious defense. The Eagles defense, much, much stronger than what the Giants faced. And then I think that, Jalen Hurts a little bit banged up. He's going to obviously be good to go. But are the Eagles going to be at full strength with their offensive capabilities? I don't necessarily think so. I think 48.5 is a pretty high number. Quick note on the wild card round. I think that the overs were 5-1 last week, with the one under being by a half point.
Yep.
So it's certainly high scoring playoffs so far, but as we're advancing, have an extra week of preparation from Philadelphia. I'm sure they're going to be able to cook up some things to keep Daniel Jones contained in the pocket. Obviously, receiving talent, not necessarily that great for the Giants. So this might be one of those games where both teams like to run the ball a good bit. It means there's going to be the clock going the entire time. So I'm going to take the under in this case.
All right.
Feel free to fade me, everybody, because currently you'd probably be better off if you did.
Same. But I'll say this. We have one game that we agree on. The rest are different. So we could go 6-0, or we can go 0-6.
Yeah.
Or it could be in between, which is realistic. But I got the Bengals plus 5.5 at the Bills. That's on Caesars Sportsbook and Points Bet Sportsbooks. Some books have them at 4.5, some at 5, some at 5.5. I'll take the best line possible at 5.5. I said this earlier. I think the Bengals win outright. I trust Joe Burrow more than Josh Allen. 5.5 points gives me a good feeling. Cincinnati has a 9-game winning streak, counting the playoffs. They were up on the Bills last time they played before the delay. I know offensive line's a question mark, but it's been a question mark the last 2 years, and they've still won anyways a lot. Their defense has been great in the second half. Josh Allen, turnover prone. Defense will force some turnovers against Josh Allen. You listed a couple spread stats for the Bengals, which are good. Here's another one, 12-5 against the spread this year. Should cover in the game. Bengals plus 5.5. Probably the one I feel best about this weekend. We got Giants plus 7.5 at the Eagles. Last week of the regular season, Giants only lost by 6. I know it was a backdoor cover, but it was at Philly. Their backup quarterback was playing. Daniel Jones has been great his last 2 games. Jalen Hurts struggled in his last game back. He's not 100%. Brian Dable's a great coach. Giants 14-4 against the spread this year, plus 7.5. I feel good about the Giants covering that line. Then I got one NBA line this week. NBA has been fairly good to me this year, certainly better than the NFL. I'll go Mavs minus 2.5 over the Hawks. A few role players are out for Dallas, but guess who's playing? Luka Doncic. Sometimes that's all you need. The guy's having an MVP level season again. 2 triple-doubles in his last 2 home games against the Hawks. Obviously, him and Trae Young had that swap deal in the draft. Luka's out there to prove, look, I am clearly better than Trae Young. I'm a legitimate MVP candidate. It's an ESPN game, a primetime game. Dallas 16-6 at home this season. Atlanta 10-13 on the road. 2.5 is not a big spread. I think Dallas wins by 3 or more in this game. That's tonight. Tonight, we're recording Wednesday afternoon. The show probably will be up before the game happens, but I know some people watch the show the next day, etc. So that is Wednesday night on that NBA game.
Well, NBA acts as a perfect transition into my trivia question this week. You don't have to range that far back in your memory because this is going to be based on this NBA season.
Okay,
Found this
easy.
on Twitter. 3 players. Let me make sure I have the right source here for that, as I took a screenshot really quick. This is from Basketball Reference. 3 players this season have averaged 40 points per game over a 5-game stretch. Any 5-game stretch of the season, averaging 40 points a game. 3 players have done it. Can you name the 3 players this season that have had a 5-game stretch where they've averaged 40 points or more?
One of them is going to be Jason Tatum, because you like to prove me wrong.
Nope, not Jason Tatum.
Jason Tatum. Okay, 40-point stretch.
Although I think he is still currently leading for MVP. I'll have to check on that, though.
Luka's one.
Luka is one.
Okay. Devin Booker.
Not Devin Booker.
Giannis.
Giannis is 2.
Okay. Is it Shai Gilgeous-Alexander? Is a tricky question.
It's not tricky. It is somebody who is currently on that 5-game stretch. So if you've been seeing a lot
LeBron?
of highlights, a lot of points, not LeBron.
Steph Curry, no.
No.
LeBron just had 48 last time out.
This guy is, if I remember correctly, somebody that you did highlight back on the old show when he was coming out of college and heading for the NBA.
And I said he would be good?
You said he would be good.
Oh, so I was right.
I can't remember if he'd be good for the NBA, if he was going to be good heading into the March Madness tourney. It was one of the two, but you highlighted this player, not necessarily from a big school.
Oh, Damian Lillard.
Damian Lillard, indeed.
Yeah.
Dame time.
Yeah.
For my one.
The Nuggets got the cover last night, though. Someone bet Nuggets -5.5 last night. Got the cover. Nuggets did against Dame, despite a big game. Jokic just got a triple-double, no problem.
Yeah, because
By the way, real quick,
Mm-hmm.
quick, Jason Tatum, I don't care what the betting odds say. He is not more valuable than Luka. He's not more valuable than Jokic. He's not more valuable than Giannis, but Giannis will probably miss out on that award only because of missed games due to injury. But Luka and Jokic are clearly better this season than Jason Tatum.
Yeah, I just pulled up the updated odds. It is Jokic as the favorite, Doncic number 2, Tatum is 3rd favorite, and then Giannis and Joel Embiid round out the top 5 for MVP.
You know, one thing I love about Jokic is availability. The guy almost never misses the game. So you're talking about most valuable player. You're talking about like stats per game. Look at the cumulative stats. Look at that. Jokic plays every game. The man gets a lot of credit for me. I'm actually leaning him right now, to be honest with you. What's crazy because he's better than he was. Like last year, he got better than the first year. This year is better than the previous year. And I know I have personally labeled Giannis as the best player in the NBA. Steph Curry is the second. Maybe Jokic is the best player in the NBA. Maybe that's the answer. Maybe he's the best overall player.
I think that it's fascinating that he has 12 triple-doubles this season, and people are saying that's a big deal, but I'm not really seeing as much hype about it. It's really a testament to how, Russell Westbrook and what he does over the course of a full season, averaging a triple-double and getting so many triple-doubles has almost made that stat kind of ho-hum a little bit. Like it used to be triple-double is a big thing until one of the great ones goes out there and does it every single night. Moving on to statements.
But no. Real quickly. You open up this door, Tom. I'm gonna close it here. Russell Westbrook triple doubles with 7-8 turnovers. He would shoot like 30% from the floor. You want to hear what Jokic shot last night on his triple double? You want to hear the numbers?
It was like 90%, wasn't it?
13 of 14 from the field. Yep. Missed one shot, was a 3-pointer, 1 of 2 on threes. 9 of 10 from the free throw line. 12 rebounds, 10 assists. He did have 4 turnovers, which, again, that's pretty good. Not 7 compared to Westbrook, or 8 in some of his triple-double games. So it is a much different triple-double Jokic is getting. It is much more efficient and much more impressive for me. Don't even go there. Do not mention Westbrook and Jokic in the same time. I got a quick trivia question for you, Tom. Who has the second most Super Bowl rings ever? behind Tom Brady as a player, and how many do they have?
Oh,
It's a break
I
room
I
legend.
I know that this was talked about as Tom Brady was going for number 7. Second most Super Bowl. So I think it probably has to be. No, it's not a quarterback.
It's not a
No,
quarterback.
it was I think like the last name is Hayes, 49ers and
You're
Cowboys. He won
so
5.
close. You're so close.
It's not Chuck Hayes because he was like a six foot
Oh
six
gosh, you're
NBA
like so
center.
close, Tom. You've got the right initials and everything. I think I'll just give it to you, just because you're not going to get the name unless you want to
Okay.
give it. Because I mean, I don't. There's no clues will help because you got the right teams and you have the right guy.
Yeah,
You're just blanking on the name.
I am
All right,
blanking on the name. Yeah.
Charles Haley, 5-time Super Bowl
Haley.
champion, great defensive lineman, defensive end, linebacker type, more than 100 career sacks. Obviously, a Pro Football Hall of Famer. 5 Super Bowl titles. Charles Haley. A lot have won 4. There's a long list of 4. There's Haley with 5. No one has 6, and Brady has 7. So
That's incredible.
good stuff. Charles Haley,
going
baby.
for number 7 in Miami next year.
Number 8, but not going to happen.
Number 8, yeah. Number 8, yeah.
Right.
Man, wouldn't that be a matchup? You got Tyreek Hill and Tom Brady going up against the Chiefs in the AFC Championship next year. That'd be some. I'd watch that game.
Gosh.
I mean, I'd watch that game regardless who's playing. Statements of the week. I'll go for more of a salute than a statement. The salute's going to be to Maya Moore, who officially has retired from the WNBA. Moore hasn't played since the 2018 season, as she took off a couple of years to fight for prison reform. She worked really, really hard to release. Let me pull up the name here. Jonathan Irons, who was serving a 50-year sentence that he began when he was 16 years old. And basically, Moore has found a new calling in life through faith and through advocacy. She stepped away from the game multiple years from the WNBA level, as well as from the national team level. And just like a really kind of fascinating person that I certainly wouldn't mind. Too. Oh, yeah. Yeah, she did. I wouldn't mind diving a little bit more into her and just like as like a biography or something like that. She's fascinating as a player or as an individual, because as a player, 6-time All-Star out of the 8 years that she was in the league, won an MVP, won the championship 4 times, 3-time All-Star MVP. Obviously significant player during UConn's heyday as being one of the top college programs. So certainly really talented on the court. But then to be this driven and this accomplished off the court as well, in something that quite frankly matters a heck of a lot more than basketball in particular and sports at large. But, having the ability, having the platform to advocate, that's kind of what sports low-key can provide for a lot of folks, is it gives them, the personal resources certainly to pursue this as a full-time vocation on the advocacy front. But also, because we've seen her on primetime TV at the collegiate level, at the professional level, at the international level. That certainly buys a little bit of credence as well, a little bit of, quote, name brand for these causes. So a salute and a very happy trails and best wishes in her future endeavors as she advocates for equality and justice across the country. So salute to Maya Moore. Absolutely.
I couldn't agree more with everything you said. Jefferson City's own. Jefferson City, Missouri, Tom. Jefferson City, Missouri. So obviously, we both went to college at Columbia, Missouri, about 30 minutes down the road. I worked at a TV station as a TV sports reporter for a couple years in Jefferson City, Missouri. I guess it's technically in New Bloomfield, but right next door to Jeff City. So I've actually mentioned this on the air before when I've worked there, some of her stuff. So cool story for sure on Maya Moore. Kind of a shame I never interviewed her while I was there, but I know our sports team was very focused on high school sports there. I didn't make those decisions, but I digress there for that. Statement of the week. I think you're going to enjoy this one. I think you're going to disagree with it. I've already kind of gotten your take. It's not the Bears one. No. That one will be made when we get closer to draft day. But I think the 49ers should stick with Brock Purdy as their starting quarterback next season. Brock Purdy's putting up better numbers, getting more wins than Jimmy Garoppolo ever did. Trey Lance, the guy has played I think in the last 3 or 4 years, he's played maybe not even 3 games, whether that's pro or college. He's never played D1 football, like D1 single A. Brock Purdy is delivering right now. I think he's better than Jimmy G. I think he's better than Trey Lance. I know that there's the ability of maybe getting Tom Brady, but that's just such a distraction. There's so many issues. San Francisco doesn't need a top 5 quarterback to win the Super Bowl with how good that team is. Tom Brady, I'm not convinced is a top 5 quarterback anyway, at this moment at least. 49ers should stick with Brock Purdy. He should be their quarterback of the future. I mean, Tom Brady was a 6th-round pick. Why not a 7th-round pick in Brock Purdy? I would stick with him over Trey Lance. Trey Lance has done nothing to convince me he's the answer there. I know it's been limited time, but he's done nothing. I was very low on him out of the NFL draft. I thought it was one of the worst picks you can make. And, he might make me eat my words. That's true, Tom. That might happen. But I like Brock Purdy better. He's the guy who the Niners should stick with. I am all in on Brock Tana, Brock Mania. Do you smell what the Brock is cooking? There is all sorts of nicknames out there. It is Purdy. It's a Purdy performance again. I'm all in. Brock Purdy, the future of the 49ers. From the 7th round, last pick of the draft, to the Pro Bowl, to the Super Bowl. This guy will do it all. Brock Purdy, the best quarterback the Niners have had since Steve Young.
I mean, I know we went back and forth about
bandwagon,
Kaepernick,
baby.
But not even Jeff Garcia.
Nope.
Jeff Garcia better.
Give me Purdy over Jeff Garcia.
This whole Purdy bit, you remember a little thing called Minshew Mania, right? Or
yeah,
Gardner Minshew was
this is the real deal. This is the real deal, Tom.
I think it's going to be the real deal until it's not.
Okay.
I think, obviously, I mean, the 49ers drafted Trey Lance. They drafted Brock Purdy, so they have them contractually, on the team for the next couple of years. Don't have to make a big decision one way or another, but they've got an offseason to figure it out. Defensive coordinators also have an offseason to figure out how they're going to stop somebody like Brock Purdy within this system.
A guy who's very good at escaping the pressure. I was so impressed with his pocket presence, his playmaking ability, his ability to escape pressure, his ability to make plays, his ability to improvise. This guy may not be as fast as Trey Lance, but this is not a pocket-only guy. This guy is great out of the pocket. I'm just he's got the eye test for me. He fits the eye test, Tom. You can pull up the stats of all the yards after catch, but he won the eye test for me, which is something that Trey Lance, in the brief times I've seen him, has not won the eye test for me. So, Purdy Mania, baby. It's real. It's real. It's the future in San Francisco. He goes out there and wins the Super Bowl this year, which I hope he doesn't because I hope the Chiefs win. What can they say if he wins the Super Bowl? I mean, what can they do? What can they do? He might win it, Tom. I'm terrified as a Chiefs fan. He wins the Super Bowl. There's no way you can go back to Trey Lance. Not a chance.
I think that there is a way. I mean,
no.
I'm just pulling up these numbers side by side. I mean, 13 touchdowns to 4 interceptions, pretty decent rating of 107.3. And then I go over to somebody like, Gardner Minshew, his rookie year, 21 touchdowns, 6 picks, followed by 16-5, rating up in the mid-90s.
Better for Purdy.
I know, a little bit better.
We talk about the weapons, but a lot of this Brock Purdy stuff was without Deebo Samuel. I almost think that you look at what happens when Deebo Samuel's healthy, he goes to 300 yards and 4 touchdowns when Deebo's there.
I'm not saying that Purdy's bad. I'm also not saying he's the answer. He's a product of a very good system.
I don't think, obviously I agree that he's a product of a good system, but I think he's a starting quarterback on any NFL team. I think any NFL team would take Brock Purdy. I mean, obviously, you've got Mahomes. You're not going to take out Mahomes. But if you were starting from scratch and you were going to ask 32 NFL GMs, can you give me your top 32 guys you would want as your starting quarterback? Brock Purdy would 100% be a starting quarterback in the top 32. Trey Lance, I think some GMs would say, I don't know. I don't think so. I don't know about Trey Lance. They might take a flyer on him, but I like Brock Purdy, Tom. That's the future for me.
Now we'll see. I mean, 32 teams passed on him 6 times and 31 passed on him a 7th time. So we'll see.
And guess what? They all regret it right now. They all regret it.
I don't know about that.
Right.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it ends up.
It. Purdy mania, Tom. Purdy mania. It's getting Purdy. Brock Tana, baby. I love it. I'm all in, man. I'm all in on Brock Purdy.
Well, he'll certainly have an opportunity to show out this upcoming weekend, and if things go well, the 2 weekends or 3, I guess 2 out of 3 weekends following, as we've got the conference championship coming up the following weekend. But of course, divisional round is where it's going to be. This weekend, we'll have brief recaps and then looking ahead to the championship round next week on Salute Your Sports. And we'll probably be talking even more foolishness about Brock Purdy and his greatness. Unless we're saying that the Cowboys are back, baby. One of those 2 things is going to be
good talking points regardless. So
for sure.
Tom, I'll see you next week. Thank you very much, guys. Everyone who watched and listened, you guys are awesome. Salute Your Sports. We'll be right back next week. Have plenty of more fun talks, and we'll see you guys then. Thanks again.